All right. So have you ever been on a train, really thirsty, go to get a coffee, and the refreshment trolley person's like, card payments only?
Oh,
It
yeah.
drives me crazy. Or our source actually had this happen, needed the restroom at a busy train station in the Netherlands, gets there, and it's like contactless payment terminal, no option for cash. It's
I
wild.
can see how that would be a frustrating experience.
And it's like these small annoyances with cash might actually be pointing to, a much bigger change that's happening right under our noses.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're going to dig into today, a deep dive into, well, a cashless society, basically.
And what's really interesting is that these, I guess, mundane inconveniences that train coffee or needing to use the restroom actually highlight a pretty big trend, right? This movement towards a cashless society. And we've got this fascinating article that kind of lays out the arguments for this shift. But more importantly for us, it really examines what we stand to lose in this transition.
Absolutely. So, for you, our listener, today's mission is to really understand what's driving this decline of cash. We're going to unpack the reasons being given for this whole thing, but crucially, we're going to explore how this impacts something pretty fundamental, your individual freedom and privacy. And to be super clear, everything we're talking about comes straight from this source material we've been looking at.
For sure. Let's start with that frustration you mentioned, like the business side of things. The article really nails it by pointing out how businesses are increasingly viewing cash as, and I'm quoting here, a fiddly nuisance.
Hmm.
Going back to that train trolley or that Dutch railway restroom, they're not just saying they prefer cards, they're outright refusing cash. So why is that?
I know, right? It's almost like, really? You're going to turn down money? And the article digs into this interesting legal loophole in England where businesses can just declare themselves card only, and because technically no debt has been incurred with actual cash, they can legally refuse your bills and coins. What do you think is the most significant implication of this legal loophole?
Well, I think the article argues that it basically normalizes the rejection of cash. It frames it as a business choice rather than like a societal issue, which I think is a bit misleading. And to connect this to the bigger picture, it's fascinating to see how other parts of the world are dealing with this. The article mentions that several U.S. states and France actually have laws requiring businesses to accept cash, and there are often pretty hefty penalties if they refuse.
So there are places pushing back.
Yeah, exactly. They are taking a different approach. They're trying to protect the right of citizens to use legal tender, right? This idea that everyone should have access to basic payment methods. It shows that this decline of cash isn't like a universal, inevitable thing. It really depends on the legal and policy choices that are being made.
And it definitely feels like this move away from cash has really picked up speed recently, right?
Yeah.
The article talks about how the pandemic really pushed things along. People were worried about germs on money. Everyone was shopping online more. It all just kind of snowballed.
Oh, absolutely. The pandemic definitely created this kind of perfect storm, right? Suddenly, cash was seen as potentially risky. Digital payments felt safer, cleaner. And as the article points out, the pandemic also coincided with the closure of a lot of bank branches and the disappearance of ATMs.
Cash deserts, they call them.
Yeah, cash deserts. And it creates this vicious cycle where fewer people are using cash, so the infrastructure disappears, making it even harder for the people who still rely on it. It's a real problem, and it's only getting worse.
Okay, so we've got the business side of it, the inconvenience as they call it, and we see how recent events have sped things up. But the article also digs into the motivations behind this push for a cashless society, and it makes a pretty bold claim. It argues that social progressives, that's the term the article uses, aren't big fans of cash because they see it as something they can't control. They can't control the activities of people using it. How do you respond to that assertion?
It's certainly a controversial statement. I think the article's point is that there's this desire for greater control, for greater visibility into people's financial activities. And of course, there's that age-old argument that cash is linked to money laundering, but then the article flips that argument on its head. It points out that electronic fraud is likely on a much larger scale. So it's almost like the article is suggesting there's this ideological divide. On one hand, there's this push for more control and transparency, and on the other hand, there's the value that some people place on the independence and freedom that come with using cash. You can do what you want with it, no one needs to know.
Right. And that idea of independence and freedom leads right into the everyday ways we use cash that could become a lot harder, even impossible, in a cashless future. The article brings up these really relatable examples like grandparents slipping some cash to a grandchild or someone giving a few coins to a person experiencing homelessness. Or even, spur of the moment cash bets with friends or a private tip.
Yeah, all those small, informal interactions. It's easy to overlook those things when we talk about the advantages of digital payments. But the article makes a really good point here. It's highlighting that those exchanges, which really depend on the anonymity and directness of cash, might not translate well to a purely digital system. They could become really clunky or require tracking, or maybe they just vanish altogether. It raises questions about the social fabric and the role cash plays in our everyday lives.
Yet beyond these personal liberties, the article raises these red flags about the risks of going completely cashless. It brings up some pretty worrying examples of past electronic payment system failures.
Hmm.
Remember that whole NatWest fiasco back in 2012? Millions of people were locked out of their accounts for days.
Oh, yeah.
Or for the TSB mess in 2018.
Right, where people couldn't access their money after an IT update. Yeah.
Yeah. These things really highlight the potential for things to go wrong, and the article really drives that point home. It's saying that when these systems fail, and it's not if, but when the consequences for everyday people can be disastrous. Imagine not being able to buy groceries, pay your bills, or even being stranded with no access to your money because the system's down. Scary stuff. And then the article mentions the post office scandal, which adds a whole other layer of concern. Even systems that appear to be working perfectly can be flawed and cause serious harm.
Yeah, like those wrongful accusations against postal workers based on faulty accounting software. It shows that even when the systems are functioning, they can still be deeply untrustworthy and have real-world consequences.
And this brings us to the core argument of the article, this idea that the death of cash is basically the death of privacy, and that it's handing over more power to the state. The main concern is that if every transaction we make is digital, it can be recorded, tracked, and analyzed.
Absolutely. And the article really connects this to the wider trend of digital surveillance and data collection. If we think about it, the state having a complete record of your financial life, knowing where you shop, what you buy, and when that represents a huge shift in the power balance between individuals and the government. And the article even mentions those proposals for electronic identity records that are resurfacing. Those would just amplify these concerns about surveillance.
And it's not only the government, is it? The article points out that banks, or anyone who could hack into their systems, would have incredibly detailed location data on everyone. They could track your movements throughout the day based on your transactions.
Yeah, basically following your digital footprint everywhere you go.
Exactly. And the author makes an important point, is it's not that we're all doing things we should be ashamed of. It's this fundamental human need for privacy. We should have the right to do things without being constantly monitored and tracked.
I agree. And the article takes this a step further by talking about debanking, which is basically when financial institutions shut down or restrict someone's access to banking services.
So like canceling their account.
Basically, yeah. And the article uses this example of the pro-Russian blogger Graham Phillips. He was hit with sanctions and essentially got locked out of the banking system because of his political views. Now, the article is careful to say that they're not endorsing or condemning his views, but they use his case as an example of how financial access can be used as a weapon against people who hold unpopular or dissenting opinions.
And in a completely cashless society, being debanked would be like being shut out of society. Imagine. You can't buy groceries, you can't get a drink at the pub, your bills go unpaid, your utilities are cut off. It's a really bleak picture. It shows how vulnerable people could become.
It's a chilling thought. And then the article brings up China's social credit system, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is a system where citizens are given a score based on their behavior and financial activity. Millions of people in China with low scores have been restricted from things like travel, and it's really a stark example of how a completely digital financial system can be used to control people's lives. It's a powerful illustration of the potential for abuse.
So wrapping up this deep dive, I think we're left with this real dilemma. Sure, digital payments are convenient and efficient, but the source material really lays out the potential costs, our freedoms, our privacy, and even the stability of our financial systems.
It's this constant trade-off, isn't it? Convenience versus control. And the article leaves us with a pretty strong message. If we want to resist this slide towards a completely cashless society and push back against this potential for increased state control, one of the simplest things we can do is to keep using cash and demand that businesses accept it. It's a call to action. It's asking us to think about what role we want cash to play in our lives and in the future.
And that's a powerful thought to leave you with.